I just know that you guys are going to love this week's video. Understanding light sources is a key part of making your colouring realistic and is such a fun thing to play around with.
There are so many ways you can play with light in your colouring, and after this video you'll have all the knowledge you need to get creative with light.
We're going to talk you through how to colour a number of different types of light sources and even show you how you can use coloured light sources to really play around with your colouring.
Capturing light has long been at the heart of a great piece of art. Traditionally, artists who are most adept at capturing light have used a technique called chiaroscuro, which is the effect of a strong light outside the canvas hitting directly on the subjects.
This effect creates intense drama and gives the painting a three-dimensional look.
You can particularly see this effect in paintings of great artists like Caravaggio, Rembrandt, Rubens and Vermeer, to name but a few.
This effect was then adopted by photography, movies and theatre to heighten the look of drama, and while you may not always be striving for a dramatic look, using references that do will help give you a greater understanding of where to place your highlights and shadows for the most realistic and pleasing effect.
Okay, let's first look at single off-page light source. And this is a great example of that. This one is imaginatively called Old Man with a Cap.
I love that they've not, gone with the obvious. Yeah. They've really been inventive.
So this is by Rembrandt and it was painted in 1631.
Wow.
And the light on here looks fantastic. Obviously it's a very obvious single light source. You can see exactly where it's hitting because he's got a bit of a shine there, and that's then casting all down here, so it creates a shadow on the side of his nose, under his eyebrow, to the side of his face here, and it's got very dramatic light. You've got very high contrast of the highlights and the shadows.
And the sort of intense detail on the wrinkly skin here,
exactly,
and then you lose detail around the bottom.
Yeah, perfect. So this is now a coloured example, and this is designed by Mystic Art Mirrors from the Fairytopia special, and this is coloured by Nicole Marie, and this gives a coloured version of that, so exactly the same positioning of the light coming from this angle here, hitting the face, catching the highlights in a similar place, and casting shadows to the side there. So that's a really nice example of that.
Yeah, they've got really smooth transitions with the highlights as well.
Done a great job. So this one is also a single off-canvas light source. And again, you can see very clearly that it's coming from this direction, hitting, I'm guessing there's a window here because you can see the shape of something here. So you're getting really nice highlights on this book on the table. And then it's just picking up the back and the detail on this guy's frock coat or whatever it's called.
Frock coat.
Picking up bits on here. Again, lovely. You've got the hands here and just the tips of his fingers that are hitting the light. You can see
the detail of different highlights and shadows. No part is missed.
Yeah. And what I really loved about this one, and chose this as an example because it shows how light can react on different fabrics and different materials. So you've got quite a soft shadow and highlight on the back of this fabric here, and also on the paperwork. But then when you get to this metal gong-looking thing,
artwork,
yeah, whatever it is, you get a very intense highlight to show the reflectivity of it. And again here, this looks like, cause it's got lots of little dots of hair, it looks like it was probably gold thread on his...
Similar with the sort of satin head wrap.
Yeah. And then much softer when it comes to the skin.
You get the really distinct line between highlight and shadow, I think is what really makes it stand out and show the difference.
Yes, that's a good one for that. I was going to move on to cast shadow after that. And this one, I'm going to stick on this one because this also shows cast shadow. So where you've got, I think this is a chair here, there's the arm, and where the shadow is, the highlight's coming in here, the light is coming in here, it's then casting a shadow onto the floor. So you wouldn't necessarily have a line in colouring showing that, but this is where you can use your imagination and your knowledge of light to colour in the shapes on the floor and bear things like that in mind. This one is called Judas Returning the 30 Pieces of Silver, and it's by Rembrandt, painted in 1629, so around a similar time, obviously.
Nice.
Okay, and we have a similar thing here, but different, because you've got smaller items. I thought we could look at this one. So again, talking about cast shadow, you can see the light coming in here, creating cast shadows from this figure here onto the wall. So that gives you a sense of how far away the wall is from them. So you can see that he's not far away from the wall. And again, you've got the cast shadows from all the food on the table. And this one's really interesting because you've got a glass water vessel. You've got the cast shadow, but the light is reflected really brightly in the actual bit of water there.
Yeah, that's fantastic attention to detail.
Yeah, very, very realistic.
Yeah. And then next, we've got an example of some brilliant colouring done by our very own Jenny Cook, which perfectly gives an example of adding in your own cast shadows. So this original design just had a plain floor down here on the bottom. So Jenny's obviously coloured with the light source coming in from this direction where we've got, you can see, obviously, the quite stark highlights we've got here, which show that it's quite a strong light source. And so then to make it even more realistic, Jen's then drawn in these cast shadows down on the floor, which just adds another dimension to the colouring, and it does make it just that bit more realistic.
And just a tiny little hint of a shadow from the hand here as well.
Yeah, it really does. It adds another layer to your colouring and makes it that bit more lifelike. Like I said, there wouldn't have been lines for that there, so it's just something else you can add into your colouring to give it that bit more of a flair, and another realistic touch, if realism is what you want to go for with your colouring.
Of course, yeah. Now let's look at on-page light source. So this is another very imaginatively titled Old Woman with Boy and Candle.
I love it.
Or
10 out of 10 for imagination.
Old Woman and Boy with Candle. And in this one, again, very dramatic, which is what I was saying about that style of painting. And you've got the on-page light source, which is the candle, and that's then shedding its light onto the inside of her hand, because she's got that above it, and casting back onto the boy.
She's got her finger very close to that flame.
It looks like that's burning, to be
It's a
quite
bit of a
frank.
hazard here, to be honest with you.
Now, this is a really tricky one to bring off, which is a light cast from underneath the subject.
Definitely it's the most difficult.
Because it's not where your mind naturally goes. So particularly here, you can see the highlights are then at the bottom of his nose and under the bottom of his chin, catching the bottoms of the apples of his cheeks and the eyes here. That's a really hard one to pull off, but looks amazing if you can do it. And I think we have an example. Yes, so Christine Caron's Woodland Fairies special issue has lots of great examples of
it really does.
How you can employ light in a really creative way. So we've got a couple of examples from that one here. This one obviously is light motes going around the picture, but his hand is capturing some kind of light. And again, it's catching the light in just the right ways, underneath his chin, underneath the lip.
Yeah, I thought they'd done the light on the face really well here. Who's the colourist of this
Really
one?
well observed. This is Elisa Rudman.
Nice,
And she's done a great job.
All the different shadows on the face, they've done it really well. It is a very tricky way to colour with this light source, and it's very hard to pull off in a realistic way, but I think they've done that really well here.
Yeah.
They've created this really angular look to the face, which I think works really nicely.
It's quite high contrast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nice in contrast to the soft light and the flowing fabric. They've done it really, really
well. And it
well.
reflects the fact that the light source is quite close, so it will create real contrast.
Yeah.
So great job.
It's a fantastic example.
Another one, like I say, from Woodland Fairies Special. This one is coloured by Danny Grundy. And there's lots of lovely things going on here. You've obviously got the glow from this neon-looking luminous fairy overlooking the riverbank, which has got lovely reflections of the glow around her in the water. And then really cleverly, there's the light source reflecting on the trees. Now, normally when you've got the single light source, it's to one side, so then everything has got its highlights on the same side, but because this is a central light source, the highlight's on the right-hand side of this tree, underneath the branches here, and then coming down onto the left-hand side on this tree, so that it's really a realistic way of reflecting this light from the central light source.
And you can see it's sort of a bit more intense the further down the tree it comes and the closer to the light source it is, and as we move further away it gets quite a bit softer and fades out in a softer way. It's not quite so harsh, the contrast of it.
Yeah, it's really cleverly done, that. It's impressive. Okay, another one from Woodland Fairies. This one's coloured by Amanda Braund. And again, we've got a very obvious single on-page light source here, and creating highlights in the hair, and the exact opposite of the other one because it's a light source above, so you're getting your shadows underneath the nose, underneath the chin, in the eye sockets there, underneath the neck.
Yeah, it's nice attention to detail here where you've got the light coming down and you're getting the highlight on the thumb, but then that's cast a shadow within the middle of the hand as well. It's
another one nicely
done really nicely.
Well observed, that. So for reflected light, we're going to stick with this colouring by Amanda, because there's also another bit of clever reflected light shading going on here. Well, actually more like a highlight, because the lightness of her skin is reflecting back up under her chin and on this corner of her cheek here. This is also shown in this painting by Vermeer, which is Girl with a Pearl Earring. And again, you've got...
In her pearl.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a really strong highlight here, which is obviously a light source to the side. So it's got the single light source reflecting on the side of her face. You can kind of see, because it's a round, shiny pearl, that the light source was a window, because there's a kind of distorted rectangle. But then you've got this light on the bottom here, which is the reflection of her collar. So again, little details like that.
And again, like in that original painting we looked at, you've got the soft, the light sort of dissipates quite softly, whereas on the shiny surface of the pearl, there's a very harsh contrast, and it's another clever way to use light to show what the texture of a surface is with your colouring.
Exactly, that's a beautiful painting. I love
It's lovely.
So the first design that we're going to look at to demonstrate a colour cast light is this design by Adele Lorien from Woodland Fantasy Special, which is a beautiful issue. And this is coloured by Kirsty Smith. And I absolutely love this piece.
It's
fantastic. I saw it come up in the Friends
really
group.
striking.
Really effective, monochrome colouring throughout, and then this light source, the pink light source, then reflected back. I just think it's stunning.
It's kind of colour cast in its purest form.
It certainly is. I couldn't think of a better example.
Yeah, it really does highlight it perfectly.
It's brilliant.
Highlight it perfectly.
So yeah, there's again, she's got all the right things going on here. Cast off onto the arm, catching the edge of the leaves. Her lap, just the tips of the butterfly wings and her hair, and then just down that side of her face, catching a little bit here as well.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
really beautiful.
I absolutely love that.
Gorgeous.
That design.
It's such a striking technique.
Yeah, superb. We also have this design, which again is very, very striking and dramatic. The design is by Josh Lee, and it's from our Gods and Goddesses special issue. And this is coloured by Sarah Lindsay. And this is digitally coloured. And it's, again, just really dramatic and striking. I love what she's done with this.
Yeah, this is sort of an example of combining colour casting with other forms of light source. We've got an internal light source within the centre of the image.
And a really tricky place to have that light source
behind
as well.
and in the middle.
Yeah.
With the cape of the sort of dress curving around and sort of cupping the light source.
Yeah.
But we've got all of these sort of folds and ripples in the fabric, which adds another dimension to where the light would reflect and how it would reflect.
And then you've got the fire at the bottom, which is casting this yellow light. So that's catching the bottom of this cauldron or whatever it is in the bottom of a cape.
And so with the fire, we've got a much softer light being spread. How would you say that? You've got a much softer light being cast onto the items around it, which is then contrasted by this. It gives the idea of this being a much more brilliant, brighter light because of the way that it then reflects onto the items around it. It gives a much sort of harsher contrast between the light and the shadow, which makes it look like a a much more brighter, brilliant light, which is nicely contrasted with this fire below
and because
it then.
you've got the contrasting colours as well, the warmth of the yellow fire and the coolness of the green neon, whatever's going on here. But I love the way there's just hints of green added across the cape, and look at that
And
right
then
on her
again
belly.
on the
That's
jewels
perfect.
as well.
And what I really love is her legs here, where you've got the green highlights
So
coming down
clever.
there, and then the yellow of the fire reflecting up. I think that's done absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, so much attention to detail and consideration of how the light would realistically reflect.
And especially here, if you look in the background, although it's dark and creates real drama, just the highlights that we've got at the bottom from the flames coming up, you've got the yellowish highlights to give the texture of the stone there on the bottom, and then another highlight from this other light source, little green sparks coming in across the top there. So
Again, even on the hair here,
yeah,
you've got the soft light on the bottom and then the harsh greener lights up here in these bits of hair. Even on the same strands, you've got the combination of the two. It's been really, really well thought out.
and again this really tricky uplighting on a face,
It's a
which
very
still
tricky one
looks
to master.
really effective. So yeah, another really impressive piece of work.
Definitely an angle of light where it's practice makes perfect.
Definitely.
comes into it, because it's not one that's very easy to get right straight from the off.
And then I think finally we've got this design by Jasmine Beckett Griffith, and this is from our Alice issue. And this is coloured by Lisa Paddock. And again, this is multiple things going on in here, which are really impressive. So where should we start? We've got
the colour cast from the green with the glow light.
yeah,
Reflective light going on, an internal light source within the page, as well as a bit of an off-page light source sort of
yeah.
straight onto her face.
But again,
onto
the
their
way they've
face.
reflected this green up in the bottom of his nose because it's below.
And
they've
onto
picked
the
up the green there,
glasses
look.
too.
Yeah. And then in her eyes and around her nose, and just catching the bottoms of things that would.
Yeah, in the glasses
Cast
you've
off
kind of
that way.
got the combination of the shine that you would naturally get from it being a glass surface, as well as the combined glow of the green. It's been done really well.
Again, a fantastic example of somebody understanding light and making their work absolutely stand out because of it. So
And just having fun and playing with combining lots of different techniques and styles of using light to create this really fun design in the end.
yeah, super proud of all the colourists in our group.
I know, yeah, if you're not in the Friends of Colouring Heaven group, make sure you do join, because it's just bursting with fantastic colouring from all of our colourists.
Really inspiring.
It's so inspiring. If you ever have colourist block, you're not really sure where to go with the design, you want a bit of inspiration, that is the place to go. We've got albums of every issue that we've published there. It's a really brilliant place to be, and so full of inspiration, and gives you ideas that I never would have thought of without having been in the group before, so go and give it a join.
That's all for this video, but if you'd like us to go into any more detail on anything we talked about, or even if there are things you'd like to know that we didn't touch on, please leave a comment down below and we'll go through all of your suggestions.
I hope you feel much more confident playing with light sources in your colouring now, but as with everything, practice makes perfect, so don't worry about it too much. Go give it a go and make sure that you're having fun.